Welcome to the 2020 New Testament Challenge. Today we're in John chapter 13. Here in John chapter 13, we have an intimate moment with Jesus and his disciples. Beginning in verse 1, we read, "It was just before the Passover feast. Jesus knew that his time had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he was now going to show them the full extent of his love. Jesus was about to show them how much he cared for them and what leadership really means. Then it says in verse 3 that Jesus knew that God had put all things under his control and he had come from God and now was returning back to God. And so what did Jesus do? He got up from the table, he put a towel around his waist, he got a basin and a towel, and he went and he started to wash the disciples' feet. Can you imagine what people were thinking? Can you imagine the silence as they were watching Jesus go from one disciple to another, washing the dirt off of their feet? This was the most menial task a servant can do. It's very humbling. And then when he comes to Peter, Peter says, "Are you going to wash my feet, Lord?" Almost like, seriously? You're going to wash my feet? Jesus then said, "You don't understand what I'm doing right now, but later you will understand." Peter, he didn't get it at all. And so he said, "No, you will not wash my feet." Peter knew that Jesus was his master and his Lord. He was his teacher. He was God in human flesh. God was going to wash his feet? Peter just said, "No, that cannot be. This is not right." But what did Jesus say? He said, "Unless I wash your feet, you'll have no part in me." And so Peter, not understanding what was actually taking place, he said, "Well, not my feet only then, but my hands and my head as well." Then listen to what Jesus said in verse 10. "A person who has had a bath only needs to wash his feet. His whole body is clean, and you are clean, though not all of you are clean." He was talking about Judas right there. But here was Peter. He said, "You're already clean. You've been changed, Peter, but I need to wash the dirt off of your feet. I need to show you what a servant really is like and what leadership is all about." In that particular time period, people didn't walk on streets that were paved. They walked on rocks and they walked on dirt. They could have just had a full bath before leaving their home, gone a short distance, but along the way, they picked up dirt. And that's the exact same thing that happens to us in life. We go through life and we pick up things that we don't really want to, but it's inevitable. We hear things that we really sometimes don't want to hear. We see things that we really don't want to see. We can pick up attitudes from other people, and those all want to try and stick to us, but we need to get rid of them. They need to be washed off of us. And so what does Jesus say? That when you've had a bath, you only need to wash your feet to get rid of that dirt that you pick up along the way. We need to do that every day, asking the Lord to just remove those thoughts and images from our mind so that we can be clean and not allow the world to contaminate us. But then, after he was all done, he went and he sat back down where he was at. And don't you know, there was a hush that came over everyone. Everyone's eyes were glued to Jesus, and they were waiting to hear what he was going to say next. This was the great teachable moment. And this is what it says in verse 13. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done to you. I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them." What was Jesus saying? If you really want to be a leader, you need to be a servant. If you really want to be first, you need to be last. You need to be willing to serve others, even at great personal cost to yourself. Jesus didn't have to do this. He was the teacher. He was the master. But he humbled himself before them so that they would see what leadership is really all about and what being a servant actually looks like. He didn't have to, but he wanted to. There was a group that we had at church one time, the Easters. They came to sing, and they were talking about a song that they had written serving other people. And he said, "You know, we don't have to serve one another, but we get to. We don't have to serve our parents even when they're old, but we get to. It's an opportunity to show God's love, and it's an opportunity to be just like Jesus when we serve someone else." Going through college, I worked at Wendy's. I love Wendy's. Wendy's is a great fast food restaurant. But whenever the manager would come out of his office and turn around the corner, and if we weren't busy, he would always say to us every single time, if you have time to lean, you got time to clean. Now, where did that phrase come from? It didn't come from him. It came from Dave Thomas himself, because Dave Thomas wanted every manager and every employee to go through his MBA program, not the Masters of Administration, but the mop and bucket attitude. Dave Thomas, he would pick up a mop if he saw something dirty. He would pick up a towel and he would clean anything. He was the owner of the company, but he knew that he got to serve others. And so it didn't matter what position you had, this was an opportunity to show your love to someone else. And so it started from the top and went all the way through the organization. The MBA program, mop bucket attitude. If you've got time to lean, you've got time to clean. You're here to serve others, not serve yourself. We are here to help others, not ourselves. That's the attitude that Dave Thomas wanted to have prevalent all throughout the organization. And that's what Jesus is saying here in chapter 13 to his disciples and to us. We are to serve one another, not because we have to, but because we get to. We can be just like Jesus when we serve others. Thank you for joining the 2020 New Testament Challenge.